Hello and welcome to today's European briefing. So this is a 20-minute webinar, and it's designed to take an in-depth look at the trading day ahead. So without further ado, if we can start as we always do with our disclaimer, please do familiarize yourself. If you do need to stop this recording, you're very welcome to do so. Okay, so just a few pieces of housekeeping to fill you in. Feel free to ask questions at any point throughout this live broadcast. You can locate your chat box on the right end of your screen. Any questions you have, that will come through to us, and we'll answer your questions throughout. So for our members, this live webinar is being recorded and will be made available in your members area once this webinar has concluded. And we will, of course, have our customary Q&A session at the end of this live webinar. Okay, so let's start and let's explain to you what we'll cover. We will start with a review of previous price action. So we really want to see what's been going on in the markets over the last few days. That will allow us, and we look at daily timeframes, and that will allow us to develop an initial trade plan. So obviously selecting what markets we should be looking to trade is a very important part of trading these markets. And that's what we'll do. We'll identify some potential interesting trades for the day, and we'll review potential market moving news as well. What we'll do just before we finish is we'll have a look at our trade selections, and we'll see if we'll have a look at each one, and we'll have a look at the 15-minute time frame as well, and we'll see potentially what opportunities may exist at smaller time frames. Okay, so let's begin with reviewing price action. So for this, we'll have a look at the daily time frames, and we'll bring up our trading platform, and we'll start as we always do with the dollar index. So we've got this sort of choppy sideways moving price action in the dollar index, and you can see it's looking like we're getting a little bit of strength coming into the dollar. So maybe we're creating a little bit of low in at this price point here around the 88, or should I say the 99, the $89 level. So we're looking like we're getting a little bit of a bounce to the upside. So this recent high is quite interesting. It's the first marker. We might get a little move up to this level, and if we break it with confirmation and conviction, then we may see this market at least push up to the early $90 level. So that's the plan for the dollar index. And when we trade the financial markets, it's very important we do have we have an understanding of the market conditions, and without a doubt the market conditions are sideways. So that is the environment in which we are trading this market. The euro dollar, similar situation. As you can see, it's looking like we're getting that dollar strength squeezing lower, and again this recent low here is an important low, and we're very likely, if this market squeezes lower, we're very likely to get a push at least down to the 22 or the 2300 level. Okay, so moving on to the pound dollar, we'll have a look at the news events very shortly. Overnight there was and they have actually a vote in the House of Lords over the course of the day, and it's all with regards to the customs union with the European Union. So just to sort of give you a little bit of feedback, we might touch upon it again in a minute. We're talking about the free movement of goods and services with the customs union, and of course the UK offer the EU, many services of many different types. However, the EU obviously create a vast number of goods, and the British market is a key player in the purchase of those goods. So it's actually equally as within the European Union's interest to when you talk about, let's say, the car industry, for example, so you've got all those European brands, you've got your BMWs, and they would like to obviously sell those, or Volkswagen, or Audis, or whatever the case may be. They sell a lot to the UK, And if there is some form of customs union, then the chances of that could be tariff-free trading, which obviously has significant benefits for many European companies. So that's going to be quite interesting, and what that lends itself to is potentially a soft Brexit, a Brexit with a customs union, which was vehemently sort of played down from the Brexiteers. So it is definitely a softening of approach, and that has the potential to really strengthen the British pound. So what we're seeing is yesterday's price action, we had a little bounce off the 43, 44 level, squeezing prices lower. And if we get a break of this daily low, then we might continue to get a little bit of a roll off to the downside. Now, a lot of that will be pre-vote, because depending on the outcome of that vote could be actually quite positive for the British pound. So do bear that in mind. And it is worth considering that we could be strengthening in this market over the course of the day if the vote in the House of Lords is positive towards a softer Brexit. Okay, so that's the pound dollar, the dollar yen. So you can see what's happening. We literally have 2 weeks of sideways moving price action. So you must bear that in mind if trading the dollar yen. What we'd like to see, we're getting quite a nice bullish day today. What we'd like to see is these highs. We'd like to see price action close above the 107.50 level. So we're only 15 pips away from it now, but we do need to see that close above that level. Otherwise, these two rejections here, just with these markets poking above the 107.50, might provide continued resistance, preventing prices from pushing higher. So that's the dollar yen. Moving on to the dollar CAD. So we're very interested in potentially prices breaking lower. And when we look at the market moving news as well, we'll have a look at the Bank of Canada. So Pelosi will be speaking today and giving his giving the markets a bit of insight into the bank's approach to interest rates. So we're obviously getting a little bit of Canadian weakness going into that news event, and we're still almost, we have what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is the 6th day where price action is currently between these two ranges, these highs and lows, and we are straddling the 125.75 as well. And this level does coincide with, in fact, I shall show you just quickly. So when we work with fib levels, we want to take swing low to swing high, and you can see that the 61.8 level, although we closed below that yesterday, which is actually quite bearish, we're currently at that level now. So it does coincide with our 25.75 level. So that's our level of support, potentially supporting prices and being able to push those higher. So that is the dollar CAD, the Aussie dollar. So we're getting this rollover to the downside. Over the last week or so, we've just experienced a structural failure to the upside, which potentially gave you opportunities to buy this market. And now it looks like we're rolling off the 7800 level and we're just pushing lower. So we would expect, looking at this price action, for prices to continue to push lower. However, a strong eye would need to be kept on the dollar index. So that is the Aussie dollar. So moving on to the New Zealand dollar. So we are getting that explosive move. We are getting that consolidation around the 73.5 level, and we're getting these prices squeezing lower. So that's what you want to see. You kind of want to see nice strong price action, and then if we zoom out, you can see kind of what we're looking for here, which is almost kind of a more recent triple top, let's say. So from a price action perspective, let me get my pen up. So we're looking at these highs. We can see that the market fails to break higher, and now we can see that this is what's called a lower high. So this could be the start of a little bit of a move to the downside. So we wanted the market to play out and see what opportunities may exist, and we're certainly likely, especially if the dollar continues to strengthen, we're certainly likely to see these prices push down to the 7,200 level. And then beyond that, we've got the same situation where it's clearly a supportive price point for prices. So when we get down to this level, if we get a break of that level, you would be looking for a really interesting opportunity to be pushing these prices lower. However, there is obviously the opportunity for that range-bound trade pushing prices back up. So for now, it can constitute an opportunity to sell this market. And in actual fact, these are the two markets we're going to identify from a trade plan perspective as potentially selling the New Zealand dollar. And I suppose there is a caveat to this, and the caveat is the dollar's strength. So if the dollar strengthens, we might continue to look for a sell trade in the New Zealand dollar. However, if the dollar starts to weaken, there could constitute an opportunity to sell this market with a stronger Canadian dollar, and that's going into the news event as well. So it depends what comes out of the Bank of Canada. So if we do get that dollar weakness, then so these are two different trades, because when you trade foreign exchange, you're trading strength versus weakness. And if we sell the dollar CAD, we're looking to buy Canadian strength, and if we sell the New Zealand dollar, then we are looking to buy US dollar strength in this case. So a little bit confusing, I'm sure. I'm sure it is, but it's quite straightforward. And we're just going to, when we have a look at the 15-minute time frame very shortly, you'll be able to have a better idea of in terms of how to trade those two markets separately. Okay, moving on to the euro pound. So again, we have this House of Lords vote, and you can see the last 2 or 3 days price action. We're sort of trading up, we're trading down, we're trading up, and now we're just at this sort of price point. So I suppose any positive news for the pound has the potential to this has the potential to strengthen further to the downside. So this is actually potentially another trade selection idea that we're just going to put on the table. We can see what's happened a little bit more recently over the last probably half an hour. We've seen these prices pull back a little bit. So we'll have a look at that on the 15-minute time frame. But as far as the currency is concerned, we're going to have a look at selling the dollar CAD, selling the New Zealand dollar, and potentially selling the euro pound as well. So just finishing the currency section, we can see that prices are really struggling to push higher, as you can see with the euro yen, which is getting this sideways moving price action for the last number of days. So a little bit of patience is required with the euro yen. So we've got interesting developments regarding the global indice markets. So the S&P yesterday, lovely explosive push higher. Today we'd expect on yesterday's close for prices to continue to push higher. The same literally applies across the board when we talk about the Dow Jones. So we would expect, I suppose yesterday's close was a little bit pushed, came off the highs to probably a level that's getting a little bit more on the uncomfortable side. But there's a lot going on with these markets, and I suppose the Nasdaq is looking a little bit cleaner. We are going to just pause and just reserve judgment on this very recent move as of yesterday. So we do want to just attain a little bit more confirmation on those markets. The UK 100, we're kind of looking at a break above the 7,300 level in the FTSE. So we would expect prices, looking at this price action, to either roll over to the downside and for this to create kind of a double top, or we get a little structural failure to the upside, we get a break of the 7,300, and the global indices continue to move higher, like we're seeing in the US. Same situation, we'd expect continuation to the upside in the Dow Jones, sorry, not the Dow Jones, the DAX, which is the German 30. So we'll just reserve a little bit of judgment on that for the short term. And finishing with the commodities, a similar position to the euro dollar and the dollar index. As you can see, just procrastinating between two levels. We have the 1365 to the upside and the 1306 to the downside. So a little bit of patience is required. This low here is the first sort of level that we'll be looking for, which is just below the 1344 where prices currently are. So we'll just watch that market closely. Same, the US oil market, you can see that this market pulled back quite significantly. Yesterday's candlestick was bullish in the end, creating a little bit of a bullish setup for today, and you can see that continuation kick in over the course of today's trading. So so we're going to watch these highs, and we're going to see what happens to price in and around this level. So again, we'll just apply a little bit of patience to those markets. So that is the commodity markets as well. So what we'll do now is let's have a look at potential market moving news. So we've identified a few markets to have a look at: selling the dollar CAD, selling the New Zealand dollar, potentially looking to sell the euro pound, depending on the outcome of the vote in the House of Lords. And we'll be looking very closely at the potential for a buy in the crude oil market. So we've selected 4 markets that we're going to look at over the course of the trading day. So let's now see if there's any news events that can impact that trading decision. So today is the 18th, Wednesday the 18th. So we do indeed have a CPI figure. It's a yearly figure, and it's estimated to be 2.7, certainly in line with expectations. So a figure that's printed in excess of that has the potential to impact the currency. So we're looking for any significant deviation off of 2.7, and we'll have a look at the price charts and see how that impacts price affecting the British pound. So because of that, we kind of want to reserve a little bit of judgment today and not be too hasty getting into the euro pound, for example. We'll have to be very careful and just be selective with our timing in that market. And we certainly have the 9:30 news release impacting that. Again, the dollar CAD, we have major news at 3 p.m. This is GMT, so we can almost allow the markets to let's see what's going to happen in the dollar CAD in the lead up to this major news event. Now, it must be noted that the expectation is for the Bank of Canada to leave rates as they are at 1.25. But what the market is looking very closely at is the potential for further guidance on potential future rate increases. So that's what the market will be looking very, very closely at. We're also looking at the crude oil market, and we have the crude oil inventories in today as well. So they're expecting a negative figure regarding the crude oil inventories. And on Forex Factory, you can get a little bit of a run through, basically, in terms of what that news release means and how it can impact the price of oil. And the reality is, some prints can impact it positively, some can impact negatively, and sometimes it doesn't have any impact at all. So it's really on a case-by-case basis, depending on the number that is printed. So that's the. So we also have the Bank of Canada press conference at 4:15, and just to finish off the end of the day. Certainly, if we happen to be in any New Zealand dollar related trade, we have a CPI quarterly figure, and it's due to be a 0.4 figure, which is a slightly positive figure. Now we were supposed to achieve a 0.4 last quarter, and as you can see, we achieved a 0.1. So we missed the mark previously. So we'll just bear that in mind for those of you, especially who are trading the New Zealand dollar. So those are the news events for the day. Those are things that are able to impact us when we trade these markets. So what we'll do now is we'll have a look at our trade plan. We'll have a look at one at a time. So we'll start with the dollar CAD. If we get a bit of dollar weakness, and it doesn't look like that as things currently stand, and we'll just look at this on a 15-minute time frame. And you can see what's happened now. We've had a very recent reversal off the lows, and now a series of structural failures pushing higher. Now we are running into these levels of resistance, which is just above. It's actually around the 2600 level, just sort of in and around here. So that might provide a little bit of resistance in and around this kind of price point. So let's see what happens over the course of the day. We do have the rate decision at 3 p.m. I think it was, and that's GMT. So let's see what happens to this market. And really, this is one that needs to be gauged a little bit closer to the time. The next one is the New Zealand dollar. So very briefly, we can see that this market is rolling over to the downside. We are getting that little bit of strength. So there was an opportunity to maybe sell the breakout around this kind of price point. We had a nice little run up to that level, and we've broken that quite nicely. So let's be a little bit patient now. Let's see if we get a bit of a pullback. If you get a pullback to the 23, 26 level, something around here, then that could constitute an opportunity to maybe sell it at a slightly higher price. So what we'd like to see is the market to create a little bit of a bottom, for it to pull back roughly in line with these, and it might constitute an opportunity to sell this market at a slightly higher price. So we watch this market very, very closely for that. So again, we shall look at the next market now, which is the crude oil. So let's have a look at the crude oil market. US oil. So this is a market that's already kind of moved to the upside, as you can currently see. So we keep getting these sideways pulses, sideways moves, a little bit of consolidation, and then explosive moves, sideways, explosive move. So that's been happening for over the last day or so now. So let's zoom that out. So you can see that we are moving higher. So it's just a case of being patient and looking for those opportunities to squeeze this market higher. Okay, so that is the crude oil, and the last market to look at is the euro pound. So if we again look at the 15-minute time frame, we can see, let's get a bit of an idea. You can see how choppy this price action is. We might see continuation of that. It's important to probably acknowledge these highs in here, and of course these lows. So there is this slightly pressure pushing prices lower. So maybe this is now a lower high, and maybe there's an opportunity to actually sell this market. But we do want to just apply a little bit of caution going into today's news. So on that note, I'm quite happy to let you guys go for the day. We hope we have a very interesting trading day ahead. So thank you all very much for joining us. Do take care. We look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.